Ever thought about what happens when, the world of politics, really high-stakes politics, smashes right into the world of cryptocurrency, that kind of cutting-edge, sometimes wild digital money scene? Well, today, that's exactly what we're doing. A deep dive into that intersection. We're looking at the reported crypto dealings of a former U.S. president and also the laws trying to, well, regulate it all. It's quite a story from being pretty skeptical about crypto to apparently having a massive stake in it, all while major legislation is being debated.
Right. And our goal here today is really to pull out the key pieces from the sources you've given us. We'll look at the specific money moves, this proposed law called the Genius Act, and, the worries about conflicts of interest, consumer protection,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. We're aiming to present it impartially, just focusing on what the source material actually says.
Okay, let's jump in. One interesting thing our sources point out right away is some broader context. Senator Durbin apparently put these reported crypto activities next to other financial priorities, criticizing things like taxpayer money for parades, while, military medical research might face cuts or millions could lose health insurance. So it kind of sets a stage, this backdrop of public money discussions, where the president's changing views on crypto then seem, well, particularly notable.
Exactly. And the change itself is pretty striking based on these sources. Initially, he was, well, publicly very skeptical. There's this social media post from July 2019. He said, I'm not a fan of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. He called them not money, highly volatile, based on thin air.
Right. Pretty clear language.
Yeah, and he added that unregulated crypto could help illegal stuff, like the drug trade. Very negative take.
Okay, but then things changed. This is where it gets really interesting, according to the sources.
It seems so. The sources suggest that once he reportedly figured out how crypto could fit into his own investments, his tune changed. That's the phrase used.
His tune changed. Okay, so that apparently opened the door to some specific ventures.
That seems to be the implication, yeah, leading to several reported crypto projects.
All right, let's unpack those reported ventures then, starting with, I guess, a kind of digital asset that's been in the news a lot lately.
Yeah, we're talking about the launch of the TrumpP meme coin.
Yeah.
Now, our sources describe this as, highly speculative. Think more like Beanie Babies or baseball cards than a traditional investment. It doesn't really have intrinsic value, mostly driven by hype. Very risky, very volatile. And it reportedly launched just 3 days before he took office in January 2025.
Wow. Okay. 3 days before taking office.
Mm-hmm. And some sources describe it as almost like a pump and dump scenario, but using the influence of a major public figure.
And what about the financial side? For him and for others?
Well, in the first few weeks, the reports say he profited up to $100 million just from trading fees.
Trading fees. So not from the coin's value going up, but from people buying and selling it.
That's what the sources suggest, yeah, and like a cut from the transactions. Now, compare that to the investors. Over 200,000 investors apparently lost money pretty early on, and overall. The sources point to 764,000 digital wallets ending up with losses.
764,000 wallets. That's a huge number of potential losers.
It is. Though on the flip side, the reports also mention about 50 large investors who apparently did very well, making over $10 million each.
Okay, so huge gains for a few, losses for many. And there was more related to this coin, right? Like an event.
Yes. There was apparently a crypto gala dinner held in Washington, May 22, 2025. It brought together the top 220 holders of that Trumbo meme coin. And get this, they collectively spent $148 million just to attend the dinner.
$148 million to attend a dinner.
That's the figure reported. But here's the really striking part. Nearly half of them, 95 out of those 220 attendees, reportedly still had a net loss of almost $9 million from buying the coin itself.
So they paid millions to attend a gala celebrating a coin that ultimately lost them money.
It certainly highlights the risks and maybe the psychology involved in these kinds of speculative assets, especially when regulation is maybe lagging behind.
And the family's involvement didn't end with the meme coin, did it?
No, seems not. According to the sources, the Trump family reportedly launched their own crypto firm, World Liberty Financial. And then in March 2025, they launched their own stablecoin called USD1.
Okay, a stable coin. That's different from a meme coin, right? Meant to be more, well, stable.
Generally, yes. They're usually pegged to something like the US dollar, designed to avoid that wild volatility, often used as a sort of bridge between regular money and crypto. This USD1 venture reportedly raised $550 million through token sales, and entities tied to the family could potentially get up to 75% of the net revenue.
75%? Wow. Okay, so connecting all these dots, the meme coin fees, the stablecoin venture, How does this reportedly affect his overall financial picture?
It's significant. The sources suggest these crypto dealings make up nearly 40% of his total net worth.
40%.
Yeah, around $2.9 billion from crypto, out of a total net worth that different sources estimate somewhere between $5.1 billion and $7.25 billion. And the family as a whole reportedly pulled in about $1 billion from crypto activities.
Those are staggering numbers, especially considering the initial skepticism we talked about.
Absolutely. It shows how fast fortunes can apparently be made, or at least reported, in these still emerging digital markets.
Okay, so all this is happening financially, but then there's the legislative side. These things don't happen in a vacuum, right? Let's talk about this Genius Act.
Right, the Guiding and Establishing National Innovation for U.S. Stablecoins Act, or Genius Act for short. Its main goal is basically to put some rules around the stablecoin market, make it safer, more transparent.
How would it do that? What are the requirements?
Well, it requires stablecoin issuers to be either parts of regular insured banks or these qualified non-bank issuers, basically, approved financial firms that aren't traditional banks.
Yeah.
And crucially, they need 100% reserve backing. So for every digital dollar issued, there has to be a real dollar held somewhere safe, plus monthly disclosures about those reserves.
Makes sense. So where is this act now? Is it law?
It reportedly passed the Senate. The sources say either June 11th or 12th, 2025. The vote counts differ slightly, like 66-32 or 68-30. But it still needs to pass the House. And as of mid-June 2025, it hadn't become law yet. It's still pending.
Okay, here's the big question then. If this act is supposed to regulate stablecoins, how does it handle a situation where a former president and his family are reportedly issuing a stablecoin, like USD1? Does it stop them? Does it address that potential conflict of interest we talked about?
Well, that seems to be the major criticism highlighted in our sources. The act, as written, apparently doesn't have specific restrictions preventing public officials or former officials or their families from owning or issuing stablecoins.
So it could regulate the market generally, but leave this specific, very large potential conflict unaddressed.
That appears to be the concern, yes. Senator Durbin reportedly called it phony regulation and said he'd vote against it for reasons like this. He also mentioned missed chances to add amendments, like cracking down on crypto ATM scams targeting seniors, something about 13 states have already started doing.
And Senator Warren raised flags, too.
Yes, she also reportedly voiced concerns about conflicts, specifically mentioning World Liberty Financial as an example.
So the worry is that these loopholes, if you can call them that, could actually make the situation worse, like legitimizing the market while allowing those reported disparities to continue.
That's the implication drawn out in the sources. You have this potential for, say, $1 billion in family revenue from crypto on one side versus those 764,000 reported wallet losses on the other. And legislation that aims to regulate but might not fully address the potential conflicts at the highest levels. It kind of highlights that Wild West feeling some people still get from parts of the crypto world, even as rules are being written.
Wow, okay. So let's try and wrap this up. What's the big takeaway for someone listening to all this?
Well, I think this deep dive really shows the complicated dance between these new digital money markets, the personal finances of powerful people, and the struggle to create laws that actually work. Laws that protect everyday people and deal with these obvious potential conflicts. It really pushes us to look closely at how wealth is made, especially when it bumps up against public service and lawmaking.
Yeah, it's a really stark reminder, isn't it? In a financial world changing so fast, you absolutely have to stay informed, not just about the tech, but about the rules or maybe the lack of rules around it. So maybe something for you to think about as you go about your day. What does this kind of reported activity potentially do to public trust? Trust in our leaders, trust in the fairness of the system, and thinking about the future of money, which is clearly becoming more digital. What responsibility do we have just as citizens trying to stay informed to understand these complex situations and, ask the tough questions about accountability?